Hello, Coffee English listeners. What if I told you that the person in your English class, who seems to be racing ahead of everyone else might, actually be struggling more than you think? In today's episode, we will explore the fascinating world of language learning speed myths and discover how this knowledge will make your English journey more confident and realistic. Research shows that our brains create something called invisible progress during language learning. This discovery helps us understand why we often feel like we are moving slowly when we are actually making great progress. The human mind has a strange way of measuring success. It focuses more on what we cannot do rather than celebrating what we have already achieved. Think about a plant growing in your garden. What do you see every day? Nothing dramatic, right? But after a month, you suddenly notice it has grown significantly. This is exactly what happens with language learning. The daily progress is invisible to us, but the cumulative effect is remarkable. Our main topic today focuses on understanding why some people seem to learn English faster than others. Let me break this down into several key areas that will help you understand the real story behind language learning speed. First topic, the myth of natural talent. Let me share something that might surprise you. Many people believe that some individuals are simply born to learn languages. However, scientific studies have consistently shown that this is not true. Every person, regardless of their background or age, can learn a second language successfully. The concept of language talent is one of the most damaging myths in education. When we see someone speaking English fluently, we often think they must have special abilities. But what we do not see is their journey, the mistakes, the confusion, the moments of doubt, and the thousands of hours of practice. Think about famous polyglots, people who speak many languages. They often say that their success comes from curiosity, persistence, and smart study methods, not from any special gift. They failed many times before they succeeded. They made embarrassing mistakes in front of others. They felt frustrated and wanted to quit, just like everyone else. The reality is that language learning is a skill, just like playing piano or cooking. Some people might have slightly better starting conditions, but everyone can develop this skill with proper practice and patience. The difference between talented and average learners is usually just the amount of time they spend practicing and their willingness to make mistakes. In English, we have a perfect expression for this. Rome was not built in a day. This idiom reminds us that great achievements take time and patience. The same applies to language learning. Every fluent speaker you admire started with simple words like hello and thank you, just like you did. Second topic, the adult learning advantage. Here is another shocking truth. Adults actually have several advantages over children when learning languages. While children might seem to learn faster, research comparing different age groups has revealed something fascinating. Adults perform better than young children under controlled learning conditions in most areas of language acquisition. Adults bring logical thinking, life experience, and better study habits to language learning. They can understand grammar rules more easily, make connections between concepts, and use their existing knowledge to speed up the process. When an adult learns that breakfast means the meal that breaks the fast of sleeping, they can remember it better than a child who just memorizes the word. Adults also have better metacognitive skills, the ability to think about their own thinking. This means they can analyze their mistakes, identify their weak points, and develop strategies to improve. A child learns by repetition and imitation, but an adult can understand why something works and apply this knowledge to new situations. The only area where children might have an advantage is pronunciation, but even this is debatable among researchers. Many adults achieve excellent pronunciation by focusing on specific sounds and using techniques like shadowing or recording themselves. The key is understanding that age is not a barrier. It is actually a benefit in many ways. This insight changes everything about how we view adult language learning. Instead of thinking, "I am too old to learn," we can confidently say, "I have the perfect age to learn effectively." Your maturity, life experience, and analytical skills are powerful tools in your language learning journey. Third topic, the plateau effect and why progress seems to stop. Now, let me explain one of the most important concepts in language learning, the plateau effect. This psychological phenomenon explains why learners often feel stuck at certain levels, especially between intermediate and advanced stages. According to research in educational psychology, most people hit a learning plateau after approximately 50 hours of study in any skill. At this point, our brains switch to autopilot mode. We become comfortable with our current level and stop pushing ourselves into new, challenging territory. The plateau typically strikes between B-level, intermediate, and C-level, advanced, on the CEFR framework. This is precisely when many learners start comparing themselves to others and feeling discouraged. They think other people are progressing faster, but the truth is that everyone experiences these plateaus. During a plateau, you might feel like you are not improving, but your brain is actually consolidating all the information you have learned. It is like a computer organizing files in the background. Nothing seems to be happening, but important work is being done. This is why breakthrough moments often happen suddenly, after weeks or months of feeling stuck. The plateau serves an important purpose in learning. It allows your brain to solidify new patterns and make them automatic. Without this consolidation period, you would constantly struggle with basic concepts and never develop fluency. The plateau is not a sign of failure. It is a necessary step toward mastery. Understanding this concept is liberating. When you feel stuck, remember that this is a normal part of the learning process, not a sign of failure. In English, we say smooth seas do not make skilled sailors. Challenges and plateaus are necessary for growth. They prepare you for the next level of learning. Fourth topic, the comparison trap and social pressure. Social comparison is one of the biggest obstacles to language learning success. In any group setting, whether it is a classroom or an online community, learners constantly compare their progress to others. This creates unnecessary stress and often leads to giving up. But here is what you need to know. Comparison in language learning is like comparing apples to oranges. Everyone brings different backgrounds, learning styles, time availability, and personal circumstances to their language journey. The student who seems to be naturally gifted might be spending 3 hours a day studying, while you have only 1 hour available. Moreover, what appears to be fast progress might actually be superficial learning. Some learners focus on speaking fluently with limited vocabulary, while others prefer to build a strong foundation in grammar and reading. Both approaches are valid, but they create different impressions of progress. Consider this scenario. Student A can speak confidently about basic topics but struggles with complex grammar. Student B speaks less fluently but has excellent reading comprehension and writing skills. Who is learning faster? The answer is that they are both progressing well, but in different areas and at different paces. The comparison trap becomes even more dangerous when we consider social media and online learning communities. People tend to share their successes more than their struggles. You see someone posting about their achievements, but you do not see the hours of frustration, the failed attempts, or the moments of doubt they experienced. The English language has a wonderful phrase for this: do not judge a book by its cover. This idiom perfectly captures why we should not make assumptions about other people's learning based on surface observations. The confident speaker might be struggling with reading comprehension, while the quiet student might have excellent listening skills. Fifth topic: the visibility bias and hidden progress. Our brains have a cognitive bias called the visibility bias. We notice dramatic, obvious changes more easily than gradual improvements. In language learning, this means we see other people's breakthroughs but miss our own steady progress. When someone suddenly starts speaking more confidently in class, we notice immediately. But we do not see the weeks of silent practice, the private struggles with pronunciation, or the homework sessions that led to that moment. Similarly, we do not notice our own improvements because they happen gradually, day by day. This bias makes us underestimate our own progress while overestimating others' achievements. It is like watching a magic trick. We see the final result, but miss all the preparation and practice that made it possible. The magician did not become skilled overnight, but we only see the polished performance. Language learning progress often happens in ways that are not immediately visible. Your listening comprehension might improve significantly before you notice it yourself. Your reading speed might increase gradually without you realizing it. Your grammar accuracy might get better in writing before it shows up in speaking. Think about how a tree grows. Every day, it looks almost the same as the day before, but over months and years, it becomes significantly taller and stronger. The same principle applies to language learning. The daily changes are invisible, but the cumulative effect is remarkable. This is why keeping a learning journal can be so valuable. When you write down new words you learn, mistakes you make, or concepts you understand, you create a record of your progress. Looking back at entries from weeks or months ago can be surprising. You often discover that you have improved much more than you thought. Sixth topic: different learning styles and individual timelines. One of the most important truths about language learning is that everyone has a unique learning style and timeline. Some people are visual learners who excel at reading and writing first. Others are auditory learners who develop listening and speaking skills quickly. Still others are kinesthetic learners who need movement and hands-on activities. These differences create the illusion of varying learning speeds. A visual learner might seem slow at speaking but excel at grammar tests. An auditory learner might struggle with spelling but have excellent pronunciation. Neither is faster or slower. They are simply following different paths to the same destination. Visual learners often start by reading English texts, watching movies with subtitles, or studying grammar charts. They might be quiet in speaking activities, but show impressive progress in written assignments. Their strength lies in seeing patterns and making connections between written forms and meanings. Auditory learners, on the other hand, might struggle with spelling but pick up pronunciation and rhythm naturally. They learn best through listening to podcasts, songs, or conversations. They might make grammatical errors in writing, but sound very natural when speaking. Kinesthetic learners need to move and do things while learning. They might walk around while memorizing vocabulary, use gestures when speaking, or prefer interactive activities over passive listening. They often learn well through games, role plays, or hands-on projects. Understanding your learning style can help you choose more effective study methods and stop comparing yourself to people with different styles. It also helps you appreciate that there is no best way to learn, only different approaches that work better for different people. In English, we have an expression, "There are many ways to skin a cat." While this might sound strange, it means there are multiple methods to achieve the same goal. This perfectly describes language learning. Your path might be different from others, but it can be equally effective. Seventh topic, the myth of perfect conditions. Many learners believe that others are successful because they have perfect conditions for learning. They think successful learners have more time, better resources, or fewer distractions. While circumstances do matter, research shows that the most successful language learners are those who learn to work with their limitations, not those who wait for perfect conditions. The truth is that everyone faces challenges. The fast learner in your class might be dealing with work stress, family responsibilities, or financial constraints. What makes them appear successful is not their circumstances, but their ability to adapt and persist despite difficulties. Some learners think they need expensive courses, private tutors, or months of free time to make progress. But many successful language learners have achieved fluency using free resources, studying in short sessions, or learning while managing full-time jobs and family responsibilities. The key is to work with what you have rather than waiting for what you think you need. If you only have 15 minutes a day, use those 15 minutes consistently. If you cannot afford courses, use free apps and websites. If you cannot travel to English-speaking countries, create an English environment at home. This realization is empowering. Instead of waiting for the perfect time to learn, you can start making progress with whatever time and resources you have right now. As we say in English, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. Perfect conditions are often an excuse for not starting. The person who begins learning with imperfect conditions but stays consistent will always outperform the person who waits for everything to be perfect. Progress beats perfection every time. Eighth topic, the role of previous language experience. Another factor that creates the illusion of different learning speeds is previous language experience. Someone who already speaks Spanish might learn English faster than someone whose first language is Mandarin. This is not because they are more talented, but because Spanish and English share many similarities in vocabulary and grammar structure. This phenomenon is called metalinguistic transfer, the way knowledge from one language helps with learning another. If you see someone progressing quickly, they might be benefiting from this transfer effect rather than having superior language learning abilities. For example, a French speaker learning English has advantages because both languages share thousands of words with Latin roots. Words like information, nation, and situation are almost identical in both languages. This makes vocabulary acquisition much easier for French speakers than for speakers of languages with different writing systems or word origins. Similarly, someone who already speaks German might understand English grammar patterns more easily because both languages have similar sentence structures and grammatical concepts. They already understand the concept of auxiliary verbs, modal verbs, and complex tenses. However, previous language experience can also create disadvantages. Spanish speakers might struggle with English pronunciation because they transfer Spanish sound patterns to English. German speakers might have trouble with English word order in certain constructions because they apply German rules. Understanding this helps reduce unfair self-comparison. Your learning speed is influenced by your linguistic background, not your intelligence or dedication. Focus on your own progress rather than comparing yourself to someone with a different starting point. Ninth topic, the confidence factor and risk-taking. Confidence plays a huge role in how fast someone appears to be learning. Some learners are naturally more willing to take risks, make mistakes, and speak up in class. This makes them seem more advanced than they actually are. Others prefer to perfect their skills privately before displaying them publicly. Neither approach is right or wrong, but the confident learner gets more speaking practice and feedback, which can accelerate certain aspects of learning. However, the cautious learner might develop stronger foundational skills and make fewer errors in the long run. Confident learners often have what psychologists call a growth mindset. They see mistakes as learning opportunities rather than failures. They are comfortable with uncertainty and willing to experiment with new words and structures, even if they are not sure they are correct. Cautious learners, on the other hand, often have a fixed mindset or perfectionist tendencies. They worry about making mistakes and prefer to be certain before they speak. While this can slow down speaking development, it often leads to more accurate and well-structured communication in the long term. The key insight is that apparent confidence does not equal superior learning ability. Some of the most successful long-term language learners are those who take their time to build solid foundations rather than rushing to demonstrate their skills. Both personality types can be successful language learners. The confident learner might need to work on accuracy and attention to detail, while the cautious learner might need to practice taking risks and speaking up more often. Understanding your natural tendencies can help you develop strategies to balance your strengths and weaknesses. Time for our traditional phrase of the day. From everything we have discussed today, I want to highlight the expression, "slow and steady wins the race." This phrase comes from the famous fable about the tortoise and the hare, where the slow but persistent tortoise defeats the fast but overconfident rabbit. You can use this phrase when you want to encourage yourself or others to be patient with the learning process. Remember it because consistent, patient effort almost always defeats flashy but inconsistent bursts of activity. This applies perfectly to language learning. So today we discovered that learning speed differences are mostly illusions created by comparison bias, different learning styles, and varying circumstances. Remember, your progress is real and valuable, even if it does not always feel dramatic. Focus on your own journey rather than comparing yourself to others. Now you have new knowledge about the psychology of language learning. Try to apply this understanding to your own studies starting today. Notice your daily improvements, celebrate small victories, and remember that everyone learns at their own pace. Subscribe to our channel so you do not miss more insights like these. Thank you for learning English with Coffee English. Keep growing and believing in yourself. See you very soon.